Okay, so we're recording right now, Gemma, Matthew here. So this is going to be just about a quick video or recording on basic call center etiquette, just do's and don'ts and basic habits. So,
Hey man, just hold on for a second. I want to change
okay,
my
let me
headset.
pause. Okay, so we're
Okay.
recording now. This is just going to be call center behavior do's and don'ts. Number one, fundamental rule: if you're not talking and you have the time to mute, please put your phone on mute. It's always smarter for you to give the opportunity of silence to the person speaking. They could hear themselves think. I know some of these things seem to be obvious, but we tend to forget them, so it's my job to remind you of the basics. Number two, um, breaks and all of these things, talking and in between calls. We would prefer you keep the phone on mute if you're going to do so, because I'm one of the people who does the QA, the quality assurance, and very frequently I'll hear kind of chatter in between calls. Sometimes you don't even realize you didn't hang up, and we hear some background noise. A client could hear this, not just a client we're calling, but a client we serve. So just kind of basic things we want to keep our minds on, so we don't look amateur. Finally, we're going to go over in this meeting, we're going to go over kind of like the formula of calling. So at your time spent here, your job is going to evolve, your clients or your calling will change. We might serve a financial advisory client, we might serve a logistics company, we might serve business brokers or some other clients with specific needs. But at the end of the day, it's essentially the same thing when it comes to outbound. And at the end of the day, it's the same thing when it comes to inbound. So outbound calling is traditionally going to be generating leads or converting customers. Inbound is typically going to be technical or customer support. And we're going to go over some basic details in regards to those specific functions in a later recording. So now this is going to be a recording on the kind of the formatting of calling, right? So for all new people, I tell them all the same thing. It doesn't matter if you're selling microchips or chocolate chips. You're essentially doing the same thing, right? There's you, the agent, and there's the client. Okay. Um, we break up every single call into three separate components. Okay, and it's really simple. Um, Part number one is going to be your open. That's the easiest thing, but if you don't do it properly, you're going to lose the phone call. You want to always remember to be a responsible professional. You want to articulate yourself clearly. Um, you introduce yourself and the organization. And it's that simple, right? You want to remember energy. We use the term smile and dial in the call center business or selling business, and that's not really a joke. You want to convey proper energy over the phone. You also want in the open, you want to identify the energy you're hearing from the client. Some clients will immediately respond to your question, how are you? Or they'll respond to you introducing yourself. And that bit of information should be processed in your mind, and you should know how to address the client just from a little bit of information. And in subsequent calls and subsequent recordings, I'm going to teach you how to identify how a client is thinking and feeling. Second part of any given outbound phone call is the pitch. Perhaps the most important, maybe not the most complicated, but the most important, because the pitch is essentially why you're calling, right? You're selling microchips, you're selling chocolate chips, you're booking an appointment, you just want to get a couple questions answered. You want to connect the client to a third party. No matter if it's selling or telemarketing or lead generating, outbound phone calls are essentially the same thing as I'm mentioning. So step one, the open. Step two, the pitch. Step three will be a series of rebuttals. Every call will require some rebuttals, or at least 90% of them based on our research. So again, 9 out of 10 calls that are connected, when you speak to a client, they'll probably say no, right? They'll say, no, no, I don't want chocolate chips. No, I don't want microchips. No, I don't want a phone call. No, I don't want an appointment. And that's fine. That's totally fine. Sometimes those no's are legitimate no's. Sometimes that customer, that client legitimately does not want to hear from us or buy from us. Sometimes they're just programmed to say no because it's the wrong time. So just like in life, timing is very important. That's why we train our agents to give rebuttals. to remind the client that yes, maybe it's the wrong time, however, they still might be interested in what we have to say. Therefore, in this particular company, no matter what the project is, unless instructed, we have what we call a 3-nudge policy. 3 nudges, right? 3 rebuttals. The client says no, you say rebuttal 1. The client says no, you say rebuttal 2. The client says no, you say rebuttal 3. If you cannot win in 3, it's not meant to be, and it's that simple. You always want to remember to be very clear and professional. You don't want to be overly aggressive. You don't want to be pushy, but you do want to be persistent. So again, in subsequent meetings, we will go over this in greater detail, but for the sake of this recording, step 1 in every single outbound phone call is the open. Step 2 on every single outbound phone call is the pitch. Step 3 on every single outbound phone call is a series of rebuttals. Okay, so appointment setting. Appointment setting is an interesting business. A lot of clients are going to be hiring us to do their dirty work. It takes a lot of time, energy, and resources to scrub through large lists of data to see where we could find potential leads and potential clients. So in this context, we have a financial advisory firm, a wealth management company, and they serve high net worth individuals who are looking to deploy their assets to the third party financial advisory firm. And that firm is responsible for investing those assets and obviously giving their client a return on their investment. What we're doing is quite simple. We're trying to, in these large sets of data, we're trying to find the 1 or 2 or even 3% of customers who would be interested in these types of services. So typically how these calls go it's quite simple. I'm going to read a script we have, but it's quite simple. So the client, excuse me for 1 second, let me pull up the script. So the client is always going to be at work. You're never going to call a client at home. So traditionally, this is going to be labeled a B2B sale, business to business. We're not asking for money on any of these calls. We're not asking for sensitive information. Our main objective is one thing and one thing only: time and date. Time and date. What time does it work for an advisor to call you? What date are you available? Anything less than that isn't necessarily a failure. It might be considered a lead, right? So in the appointment setting business, it's the highest quality because the client clearly understands what the nature of the call is about, why we're setting up a phone call, a second or a follow-up phone call with someone different to call them, and we have an agreed upon time and date that works. I'm going to read once again just a basic script. This is a generic script. Well, not so generic. It's actually provided by one of our clients, but nevertheless, this script could essentially be tailored slightly to any type of client looking for appointment setting services. Okay, so here we go. So hi, my name is Matthew, and I'm calling from Lionheart Wealth Management in New York City. How are you? I pause, I listen. Great. I'm reaching out because we do a lot of financial advisory and retirement work with individuals at your company. Our advisors will be back in the area to meet with their clients in a few weeks, and prior to doing so, they are holding introductory phone calls with some of the people they haven't had the chance to meet with yet to tell them more about the team and how we've been able to help. So we have set aside time next week, Tuesday morning, Thursday afternoon. How does your calendar look during those times for a 10 to 15 minute phone call? And that's it. That's essentially your job. We're going to have more recordings on opens, on pitches, and on rebuttals specifically. But that's essentially the process of setting an appointment.